When my husband and I got out of the car, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law eagerly asked him, "Hey, Paul, what's up with this car? It's amazing. Glad you finally decided to join us in the better part of society, but buying such an expensive car out of the blue is a bold move." My husband laughed and told them, "This isn't my car, it belongs to Jasmine's father." Both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law gasped, saying, "What?" Then my parents stepped out of the car, and my in-laws were shocked when they saw what they were wearing. Such an expensive suit, I recognize that brand. Why are Jasmine's parents dressed so well? My name is Jasmine, I'm 28 years old and work in an office. I married my husband, Paul, last year. Paul has always been kind and caring since we started dating, and I was so happy to marry him. We share the household chores because we both work. Paul has lived alone for a long time and is great at taking care of things around the house. Sometimes he even cooks better than me, depending on the dish. We support each other and have a happy life together. But there's one thing that's been getting in the way of our happiness: my in-laws. They assume I'm poor and treat me poorly because of it. Why do they think I'm poor? I think it started when we had a dinner party to meet each other's families before we got married. My in-laws, Paul's parents, his sister, and him, come from a wealthy background. His father worked as a banker and had a lot of money. Everything he wears is from a high-end brand. They seem to think that wearing expensive things means you have status. Paul, however, isn't interested in those things at all. He prefers buying second-hand clothes online and loves them, sometimes more than their original price. So when I met my in-laws for the first time, I was surprised by how different they were from Paul. I even wondered if Paul was adopted. I later realized that Paul lived alone for so long because he didn't share their values. He started living on his own after he went to college. Since they think that being rich makes you better than others, they looked down on me and my parents when we met for the first time. My dad runs a small factory. When my in-laws found that out, they made fun of him right away. He runs a factory, and yes, maybe he's the president, but a factory with a name I've never heard of must be poor. No big bank would ever give him a loan. They said all this while meeting us for the first time, which made me question their character. If Paul hadn't warned me beforehand, I would have been furious. My parents had also been prepared, so they stayed calm, even when my in-laws mocked us. Well, it's true we run a small business, but we're grateful we can keep it going. We can pay our employees every month. I wonder how many employees you have. Oh, I heard Jasmine has an older brother. Oh, he's working today. He can't join us. Is he on a business trip? Does your brother work for a good company? My son works at my company. When my dad said that, my in-laws all laughed. You mean it's a family business? A family that can't even take a day off must not be doing well. They kept saying terrible things about my family. Paul kept asking them to stop, but they wouldn't listen. In the end, Paul had to cut the visit short. That's why I don't have a good opinion of my in-laws. They made fun of my family, too. Honestly, some people might have ended the marriage over something like this, but I love my husband more than that, so I decided to marry him. As long as I don't have to deal with my in-laws, we can live happily and peacefully. The truth is, my husband doesn't like his family either. I was angry with them for mocking my family, so we avoided visiting my in-laws unless we absolutely had to. But about a year after we got married, I guess they got tired of us not showing up. They started pressuring us to spend time with them. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law began coming to our house often. They would say whatever they wanted. Paul doesn't come home at all. It must be because she's trying to stop him. She's probably jealous of our lives. I understand. We live at a higher standard than the poor, but I do hope you'll have a baby soon. If you don't have an heir, she's just a worthless wife trying to get rich. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law would visit from when I got home from work until my husband arrived. I get home early because my job lets me leave on time, but my husband usually works overtime and gets home just before 9 p.m. So, for about 3 hours, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law would come over to criticize me. Your apartment is so small. Paul works for a good company. You should live in a nicer house. But my husband and I think our place is big enough for us. It's not your husband, it's you, right? Don't impose your ideas on Paul. There's so much plain food in the fridge. Don't look in my fridge without permission. You don't have caviar or fancy wines. We don't have anything like that. How boring. Why did Paul marry you? A poor, money-seeking, boring woman is rare. You can say that, but if you touch Paul's money even a little bit, you'll regret it. We'll make sure you're erased from society. They would make fun of me, threaten me, and ridicule me, then leave. I'd tell my husband about it, and he'd scold them, but they kept coming over, showing no remorse. They even ambushed me at home when I came back from work. Every time I came home, I felt depressed. How could they keep picking on me like this? But my mother-in-law and sister-in-law didn't stop trying to make me feel small. It all became too much for me, and I had a mental breakdown. I started spending time at a cafe until my husband finished work. Then I would go home with him. When my mother-in-law and sister-in-law saw me returning with my husband, they said, "You're like a pest, taking away Paul's freedom like that." Honestly, it was more disgusting that they waited for 3 hours just to try and tear me down. My husband was fed up too. He even went to his father for help, but my father-in-law was just like my mother-in-law. He said that having a poor wife was rare for them, and if things didn't change, it would ruin our marriage. That's when I decided to take drastic action. It wasn't something I wanted to do, but my in-laws had pushed me too far, and I wasn't going to back down. A few days later, my husband and I decided to visit them. My in-laws were thrilled when we told them Paul was bringing his wife home with him, but then, my mother-in-law said something horrible. "I'm so happy to see Jasmine after such a long time. I wonder what it's like to be a wife beater." We arrived at my in-laws' house for the weekend, and when we got out of the car, they rushed outside, excited to see us. "Hey, Paul, what's with this car? It's amazing. I'm glad you're finally living on our side of society, but buying such a fancy car out of the blue is a bold move, isn't it?" My husband laughed and said, "This isn't my car, it's Jasmine's father's." "What?" my mother-in-law and sister-in-law said at the same time. Then my parents got out of the car. My in-laws were completely shocked when they saw how my parents were dressed. "What an expensive-looking suit. I recognize that brand. Why are Jasmine's parents dressed so well?" And then, my brother stepped out of the car, tall, 6 feet, looking like a model. My in-laws' eyes widened in disbelief when they saw my brother wearing the same high-end brown suit as my father. "Who is that handsome guy?" "Nice to meet you. I'm Simon, Jasmine's brother." My in-laws were stunned. Seeing my family so different from the last time they saw me, my husband was fed up, saying, "What the hell are you doing?" and urged them to show my family around the house. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law quickly invited us in, acting like the complete opposite of how they were before. They led us into the living room and said, "We'll prepare some tea for you right away." They were curious and asked my father, "How can you afford such luxury items?" It was unbelievable how quickly their attitude changed just because of how we looked. My father responded calmly, "My factory is small, but the parts we make are unique. We receive orders from big Japanese and foreign companies." My father's words left my in-laws speechless. Their faces turned pale. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law suddenly became polite to me, but my father-in-law stayed completely silent. My sister-in-law, however, was very interested in my brother. She asked him a lot of questions. "What kind of work do you do at your father's company?" "I'm good at English, so I handle organizing meetings with international companies, and I travel abroad for half of the year." "That's really impressive. Are you single, Simon?" "No, I'm married." "That's too bad, but I think I'd be a better match for you than your wife. What do you think? Maybe we could go out for dinner sometime?" My sister-in-law started flirting with my married brother right in front of me and my parents. Honestly, I couldn't help but admire her audacity, but now, I was ready to make her regret this behavior. She was going to face consequences, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. My brother looked at me and nodded, then turned to my sister-in-law and said, "Are you serious? You think you're more desirable than my wife?" My wife was a former model. She's highly educated, and her father is the president of a well-known company. You're no match for her, no matter how you look at it. It's funny how some people, who only have a little wealth, forget their place, isn't it? I don't talk badly about you, but you should know your place and stick to your own path. My brother's words struck a nerve, and my sister-in-law was so stunned she couldn't speak. She was in shock and seemed on the verge of passing out. Finally, my father spoke to my in-laws. "I don't care how much money other people have. Money is important, but you can't measure a person's value by it. We should focus on being human, not obsessed with wealth." "I'm sorry we were harsh earlier," my father said, bowing his head in apology. My in-laws were now completely stunned and quickly apologized. Since then, they have never tried to bully me again. In fact, they've started contacting me regularly, trying to flatter me. It's a bit annoying how often they reach out now. By the way, My parents and brother aren't the type to flaunt luxury brands or boast about their wealth. They simply helped me with my plan this time. My father prefers to wear an old suit, even if it's cheap, and he's not interested in expensive brands. My brother is very kind and doesn't look down on others, which is why his wife's father really likes him. He even asked my brother to take over the company because he thinks he'd make a better successor than his own son. I'm sorry I put my family through something they're not used to, I said as we were all exhausted on the way home. After that, I was able to return to a peaceful married life with my husband. I haven't visited my in-laws since, but my husband still visits them during Thanksgiving and Christmas. Since that event, my in-laws have changed. They seem to have lost some of their confidence, or maybe they've repented. They no longer brag about their wealth like they used to. My husband even says he feels most comfortable around them now. I'm not sure if they'll ever go back to their old ways, but for now, I'm just glad the issue has been resolved. I will continue to take care of my husband and my family, and I'll try to live a humble life. They thought they were superior, but in reality, my family has much more wealth than they do. My in-laws should be ashamed of themselves. I don't think it's right to keep looking down on others just because they have less. I'm glad you were able to give your in-laws a good scolding, and I hope you continue to live in harmony with your family.